Welcome to Mr. Biz Radio, biz talk for biz owners. If you're ready to stop faking the funk and take your business onward and upward, this show is for you. And now, here's Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth.
All right, welcome to another episode of Mr. Biz Radio with me, Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth. And this week we were going to talk about something that I don't want to say near and dear because it's going to make it sound like I'm kind of like a crippled old man or something, and that's far from the truth. But I found out before we did the show, so we booked our guest this week on the show a couple of months back, and just before the show here, we made a connection that I didn't even realize. So we'll talk about that here in a little bit, but we're going to talk about chronic pain. How many people have chronic pain that you're dealing with? And I know a lot of people, especially as you get, depending on how healthy or unhealthy you are, or maybe overweight or whatnot, in your 30s, 40s, maybe you have a blue collar job where you're working with your back a lot, right? From the time you were maybe early 20s or even late teens, and you develop, shoulder problems, back problems, you have lower extremity problems with your ankles, your knees. I know my mom deals with a lot of these things. And so I wanted to have someone come on to talk about this. This guy's absolutely amazing. And after we did some of the pre-show talk, I find him even more amazing because he was telling me some of the other things that we have in common and some of the folks that we know from the powerlifting world. But you're about to get a backstage pass to a discussion on the secrets behind Dr. James Stoxen's lightning fast chronic pain reversals. We're going to learn how Dr. Stoxen is able to reverse most chronic pain in less than a week with lasting results when other doctors have failed. This is not some pie-in-the-sky new approach. Dr. Stoxen has been invited to speak at 350 plus medical conferences and over 200 editors of medical journals and have asked for his research that explains how he is able to reverse chronic pain so fast. Dr. Stoxen, welcome to Mr. Biz Radio.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Been looking forward to it. Like I said, like we were talking before, and it's funny, guys, we were talking before the show and producer Alan cuts in and he's like, hey, we got to get started here. Save this for the show. This is good stuff, right? So we're like, yeah, let's do that. But tell us a little bit about your journey. So your career, your entrepreneurial journey, how you got to be like the guy for reversing chronic pain.
Well, if you could imagine, my first day in practice was very unique. In fact, it was Ed Coan. If you're in powerlifting, weightlifting, or any kind of sport, you know Ed Coan, who was the pound for pound strongest man in the world, broke 71 world records in powerlifting back in 1986. That was my first patient. And I'm thinking, well, this is my entree into sports medicine. And that's what I wanted to do. So I had to keep him around. Because, build a relationship with him, and he learns from me and I learn from him. And it's a perfect union of these two people that, will exist for, now we're going on, 86, we're going on 38 years now that we've been friends.
Yeah.
And Ed came in with some nagging injuries, and I just told him, I said, you know what? I heard you broke these world records on your last meet. Well, you're going to have to break these world records again in 6 months. So I have an idea that maybe you might be interested in. And that is that when you put external weight on the frame, which is the barbell and the dump and the weights, you want that to be evenly distributed. Sorry about that. You want that to be evenly distributed so that you don't have a catastrophic injury. And that makes a lot of sense. But what people don't realize is that inside the body, there are muscles that will contract, that are contracting based upon signals that they're getting from the tissue that there is inflammation or lactic acid and abnormal movement patterns that create this inflammation and lactic acid. And so by evaluating, like the gait pattern, the walking pattern, just by using my hands to go through every single muscle of his body from toe to, pelvis, like 3 days a week, he would come in for 2 hours at a time. He never really had any pain. but I said, let's remove all the internal compression from muscle tension from your frame so that we can stack more weight on top of the body. Because I don't know if you realize this, but as soon as you like maybe you buy a pair of shoes and then it's a little bit defective and then you have this abnormal movement pattern on one leg, and then that stress leads to muscle breakdown, which creates inflammation. That inflammation is then detected by these chemical nerves. So there's chemical nerves that are called nociceptors, and they can sense all this change in chemistry of the muscle based on even the most minute abnormality of movement in the body. And it will tell the brain, hey, there's a problem here. And then the brain will then contract all the muscles of the surrounding area. Well, the last thing you need is a lot of muscles inside the body contracting on one side. If you're going to put 450 pounds on this side and 450 pounds on that side, thinking that they're even, when in reality, one side of the body has internal compression of 30 pounds that you don't even know you have. And then you go down with that heavy weight, and then your knee buckles and you're done. So, we didn't even want to get to the point where there was a nagging injury or something that he had to work around. We were progressive. We were preventive, preventive. And that's how Ed broke, like about 60 world records while I was attending to him between 1986 and 1992. And in 1992, we had, I was the doctor for the APF. We had a man compete in the women's weightlifting and, threatened to sue Ernie France, myself. And I'm like, okay, I gave 6 years of my life to this amateur sports organization, but getting sued by a transgender person is just not where I want to be here in my life.
And all the way back then,
Yeah, that was 80. That was the world championships in 1992.
Okay.
In Rome. No, it was in Pescara, Italy.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how far back that goes. And I did my due diligence. I called the American Tennis Association. I said, hey, what happened when Renee Richards, competed against the women? He said, well, the women were beating him, so nobody cared. He didn't make any money. So he disappeared. But the Tennis Association actually lost that lawsuit against that Renee Richards. They said, we had to have, bylaws that, this is a man and this is a woman based on chromosomal or whatever it was, because you couldn't pick out something and say, well, let's do chromosome test. And you say, well, you did that just to exclude my athlete. We're going to sue you. And that's how things went.
Yeah. Absolutely crazy. Yeah, absolutely crazy. That was even going on. Geez, all the way back then. You see how much in the forefront it is now. Guys, again, talking with Dr. James Stoxen. So just so you guys understand, so we got to hit a break here, but I want to make sure I frame this appropriate for you. Anyone who's heard of Tim Grover, who is as a trainer type of guy, he got his start with Michael Jordan. That's basically what Dr. Stoxen did with Ed Coan. Now, Ed Coan is a Michael Jordan of powerlifting.
If you would like to reach hundreds of thousands of business owners every week, Mr. Biz Radio can help. Our show airs globally 7 days a week for more than 25 hours across several internet radio stations, plus 20 plus podcast platforms. Also, video exposure on the new exclusive Mr. Biz Network streaming channel, which gets blasted to 100 plus streaming platforms, and the Mr. Biz YouTube channel, and our 350,000 social media followers multiple times every week. Join Mr. Biz Nation as an advertiser by emailing us at info@MrBizSolutions.com.
Attention, Mr. Biz Nation. We have an exclusive offer just for you. Get lifetime access to scarcity countdown timers and logic links for only $69. Yes, you heard it right. Only $69. These tools will add urgency to your email campaigns and website pages, helping you increase conversions, sales, and capture more leads. Don't miss this incredible opportunity. Visit GetPulseTools.com now and take your business to new heights.
Got a question for Mr. Biz you want answered on air? Email it to info@MrBizSolutions.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to Mr. Biz Radio. Again, talking this week with Dr. James Stoxen. So, and you can find more at drstoxen.com, drstoxen.com. We'll put it in the show notes as well. But again, as I said at the close of the last segment, Ed Coan, Dr. Stoxen mentioned all the world records he broke, but he literally, I mean, anyone who was anything in powerlifting is going to know the name Ed Coan, because again, I'm not just making this up. He literally is like the Michael Jordan, or for those of you more recent in basketball, if you're a LeBron guy, he's LeBron. And one of the big things, and I wanted to mention that because to see the significance of helping someone like that, and a really critical aspect of having long-term success in powerlifting is pain management and staying healthy. Not necessarily pain management, but avoiding pain, but also just staying healthy. There were so many guys while I competed, and we were talking before the show, I didn't realize I had competed for about 19 years myself. And I had one pretty decent injury, never had to have surgery, knock on wood. So I was able to avoid a lot of that as well. But I think that's what helped me be successful. Because if you think about it, when you're trying to maximize your strength and you're working up and you're trying to get to, I don't know, squatting, say 900 pounds, you're going to squat 900 pounds and you get up to 850 and you have an injury and you got to take 3 or 4 months off, you have to have surgery and take even longer off. And you start off, back at 400 pounds and you got to work. How long does it take you just to get back up where you were before you can start making progress again? So in the powerlifting world, that is massively important. That is why Ed Coan was able to break so many records and have such consistent success. A lot of these guys they rise like crazy, right? And they maybe break a couple of records here and there, win a couple gold medals at the World Championships, maybe a couple of years, and then all of a sudden they fall off the face of the earth. They're done. They've got injuries and they're done. Whereas someone like Ed Coan did not have that. And obviously you were a big part of that, Dr. Stoxen. What are some of the things that you'd mentioned specifically with Ed? I'm imagining you also probably work with other powerlifters or other athletes. Is that correct?
Well, because of my work with Ed Coan, I was invited to go to the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union, USSR for us older guys, the nemesis. We went through peace through sports because it was still bad times with the Russians. And we had to go through Concordia University, fly Pan Am, and get special visas from Canada. That's how tough it was to get into Russia. And I actually met the father of modern plyometrics, Yuri Veroshansky there. And my enthusiasm for sports medicine had me spending $2,500 on all the Soviet sports reviewed by Michael Yisis. Well, there were translated journals from the Russians, and I read them cover to cover. My father's like, "Are you crazy?" Well, anyway, they had that after that powerlifting meet, Ed Enos and I ran the first sports medicine course in Russia, and we had Veroshansky as a speaker. I'll never forget. They said we were, it's all on telephone, no internet. He said, "Well, Dr. Stoxen, who do you want to speak at the conference?" So I gave him a whole list of people. He called me back. He said, "We have a problem." I said, "What's the problem?" He said, "The Russians don't know how you know all these people. And they think you're a spy. And in fact, they're so adamant that you are a spy that they've assigned a colonel from the KGB for our group, Colonel Ryginsky." And I looked him up recently, and he was like a Russian hitman or something,
Right.
Back in the day, Ryginsky was an older guy, but I mean, Ed remembers how we were followed around by the KGB everywhere we went. And so I picked these doctors and we had these conferences. I stuck around for another 2 weeks and studied under Yuri Veroshansky about plyometrics. And one thing different about plyometrics is that you're actually having an impact with the earth where you have a collision. And the quicker you come off of that collision, the better it is for your development of your elastic elements for track and field and just, speed and quickness. And so I said, well, like powerlifting is levers, and so is extensions and curls and weightlifting, bodybuilding, all levers. But plyometrics is not levers, it's springs. And I said, I think the medical world's got it all wrong. There would be phases like, oh, you need to pay attention to the rotator cuff, and then you have to pay attention to the ankle cuff, and look at the body as a series of levers. And then all of a sudden I come out with this idea that, the body's a spring system and a lever system. But the problems that we have that we can't heal are herniated disc, which is a spring system. Disc is a compression spring. The spine is a torsion spring. You ever watch somebody play golf? They got the wind up. They put, wind up the spring, and then they say, just let go. Don't use any muscle. And that spring energy hits the ball 350 yards. And if you try to use muscle, you interfere with that spring energy. So herniated discs, like degeneration of your knee and your hip, those are actually springs as well. The cervical spine, the shoulder is built on a spring suspension system. That's why when you hit somebody in football, you don't get hurt as much, because the neck is a spring, and then the shoulder is built on a suspension system through the traps. So I lectured on how I evaluate where the inflammation is in this spring system and where that muscle tension is in that spring system, based on watching, videotaping somebody walk back and forth, for 30 seconds, and finding the flaws in the walking pattern, and how the body transitions the weight across the leg and adjusts for the impact and the landing and the transitioning and the push off. And you'd see these patterns, that kept repeating themselves. And I started documenting them and lecturing on them. And then we don't even do the normal standard examination anymore. I can watch you walk, and I can tell you almost everything that's wrong with you just by watching you walk. And I don't even have to take a history. Like in 1988, I went to the All African Track and Field Championships. They were speaking Afrikaans and all kinds of languages. And I didn't know what they were saying. They didn't know what I was saying. So we just made hand signals, walk back and forth. And I was able to accurately pinpoint exactly what was wrong with the athlete, and reverse it just by working that pattern of where the muscle tension is related to the inflammation, that circuit. And so that's how I actually reverse severe chronic pain cases. I know inflammation is the cause of the reflex muscle tension that is twisting your body into chronic pain and compressing your thoracic outlet, compressing your disc, compressing your knees and hips, degenerating them, pinching nerves. So by going to the bottom and reversing that pattern, like 100% of these herniated discs the pain would be gone in a week or two. And thoracic outlet syndromes, 5 days. Severe chronic pain cases, 5 to 7 days. Just working the pattern of inflammation. And there's actually,
that's absolutely crazy. We got to hit a break here, Dr. Stoxen, but absolutely astonishing. I want to talk more about this. And for those people out there that have this chronic pain, how can we help them avoid it and then get rid of it?
How would you like to have direct access to Mr. Biz to help you run your business more profitably and more efficiently? At MrBizSolutions.com, you get live access to not only Mr. Biz, but also several of his hand-picked and trusted business experts, each with 20 plus years of experience to help you optimally manage and grow your business. That's just the start of where Mr. Biz Solutions begins. Learn more at MrBizSolutions.com. That's MrBizSolutions.com.
Attention, Mr. Biz Nation. We have an exclusive offer just for you. Get lifetime access to scarcity countdown timers and logic links for only $69. Yes, you heard it right. Only $69. These tools will add urgency to your email campaigns and website pages, helping you increase conversions, sales, and capture more leads. Don't miss this incredible opportunity. Visit GetPulseTools.com now and take your business to new heights.
Check out all 3 of Mr. Biz's best-selling books at MrBizBooks.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to the show again, talking this week with Dr. James Stoxen. You can find out more at drstoxen.com. And again, we'll put this in the show notes as well. But okay, so for those of you out there that are listening or watching, and you might be one of those folks that, I mentioned at the outset of the show is, maybe you've got a blue collar job, you've been in it for several years, maybe even not several years, because you've got maybe some bad habits on how you're lifting weight, or you're, moving bricks and, concrete and things like that. And you develop some problems. It's funny, my dad, not really funny, actually. My dad, where I grew up is a blue collar town, steel mill. Everyone, my uncles, my grandfather, my dad, everyone worked in a steel mill. My dad took me in there and he said, you don't want to do this for a living, because he said, when you're in your 20s and 30s, it's kind of okay. Like you're in shape, all that's good. And getting a little workout while you're, working. He's like, then when you're in your 40s, it starts to wear on you. You start to wear down a little bit and you start to have some of these aches and pains. When you get in your 50s, those aches and pains that started maybe when you're late 30s or in your 40s become chronic, because you've been doing whatever this is and using your back to work for 30 years maybe at that point. And he's like, we don't want to get into that position. He said, then that's when you see, and he was pointing out people in my family that had worked in the steel mill and were retired now, and they're in a wheelchair or they could barely move and are dealing with a lot of these things that we're talking about with this chronic pain. So what are some of those things that someone like that, even outside of being an athlete necessarily, Dr. Stoxen, that can help them maybe avoid getting in this chronic pain situation? And then if they get into that situation, what are some things they might be able to do besides come and see you that might be able to help them, alleviate some of that?
Well, a lot of people ask me where I go, like, how do I stay in great shape? Because I'm working 16 hours a day, doing 12 to 16 hours of deep tissue with my arms and shoulders a day. And also the new chronic pain is now these thoracic outlet syndromes and these chronic tech neck problems, that the inflammation around the head and neck is so severe from manipulating cell phones and being on TikTok and everything, that the inflammation will move into the brain and actually reduce it. It takes tryptophan amino acid away from the production of serotonin. It says, hey, look, I know you need tryptophan for serotonin production, but we're going to take it down a different pathway called the IDO pathway. And all of a sudden your production goes down and you're like feeling like, well, I don't want to do anything today. I'm just really not motivated. And then all of a sudden you drift into severe clinical depression. So there are new chronic pain types syndromes that are producing these anxiety and depression cases where people are just, committing suicide, unfortunately. But this is another thing I want to bring to light. What had happened was in 2002, I was assigned to take care of a famous entertainer named Anthony Field from the Wiggles. And they said he was, the Wiggles were really hot back then, and they were selling out, in 2004. They sold out 15 shows at the iconic Madison Square Garden in a row, which, Aerosmith is like, hey, dude, you sold out 2 shows at Madison Square Garden. And he's like, yeah, but the Wiggles sold out 15 shows in a row, like who am I,
Yeah.
So, back in the day, Anthony had chronic pain. He had severe clinical depression, and he walked up to me and he had his shoes off, thank God. And I was analyzing his gait as he walked up to me, because I wanted to move quickly, And he said, put your table by the stage, and I'm going to get a crack before I go out, and then I'm going to crack during the show, and a crack after the show, and a crack before the second show, and a crack after the second show. And I'm like, I'm going to help you, but it's not going to be like that.
Yeah.
and he was going to throw me out, like he's the boss. Of course he is. He's paying for me. And I
Yeah.
said, well, how long? Then after analyzing his gait, I noticed the, left side his foot was torquing inward, and it was pointed out about 30 degrees, and he was rolling over that big toe. And that throws that whole side off, like the stress all the way up the leg into the knee, cracking knee, plantar fasciitis, shin splints, hip pain, lower back pain goes all the way up into the neck. And I said, these are all your conditions. He said, how do you know? And then he started listening, and I put this big vibrating massager on that pattern, on the pattern of the inflammation and the tension. And when I got done, he got up and he was kind of mad at me because I didn't give him the crack, but I did it purposely to show him that that's not the way to do it, And he got up and he went, oh my God, he goes, my pain is completely gone for the first time in 20 years. And he was shell-shocked, and he said, don't go anywhere. You're my doctor forever. And then I worked for the Wiggles for 20 years. And then also the tour manager was Dave Brown, who was a tour manager for New Backstreet Boys, New Kids on the Block, Britney Spears, Kanye West, Taylor Swift. Like I could go on and on. And he said, you're now my doctor for all my shows, all my entertainers. You're going to treat all these entertainers. And then my celebrity practice blew up from there. Since 2002, we're looking at 150 tours now.
Oh, wow.
Entertainers from, Ozzy Osbourne to Michael Bublé, Cirque du Soleil, American Idols, Not So You Think You Could Dance, Kanye West tour, people I idolized, they're paying me to listen to them and help them out of their conditions. So there's some good things, if you're studying to be a doctor, I don't care what you're trying to do in your life. If you want to really live a good life, where you're international, people are calling you from Dubai or Saudi Arabia, can you fly out here? I'll put you up in a penthouse in Dubai, and you could treat me for a week to get rid of my chronic pain, at several $1,000s a day. Then, you got to put the effort out to create a unique product service. And, I'm able to now, with this vibrating massager we just developed, to flush the inflammation out. So in about 5 days, because when I was treating him, I only had 3 days. So I can't give him the standard, 1 hour treatment. I wanted to show off. I mean, let's just face it. I was there to show off and get to be his doctor. Put my best foot forward. So I after treating him for 4 hours, we had lunch. He did the show. We came back. Let's do it again. So we went at it for another 4 hours, and he did the afternoon show. And then he says, I'm going to be in room 102, the hotel. I put 3 more hours in. By that time, we had 12 hours of treatment on his legs and all those muscles that were creating the chronic pain. And the next day I did the same thing. I had 24 hours of treatment on one man in 2 days, and he was completely pain-free, and the pain never came back ever again.
That is absolutely crazy.
And he was really in severe chronic pain. So I just use that concept for all these other patients now. And it's like you're getting, 20 weeks of treatment in 5 days. People don't have time to go to the doctor for 20 weeks and park the car, drive home, get, a half hour of something that works, and then go home again and mess it up.
Yeah.
With this, you get treated, and 10 hours, you go home and you rest, and you come back, we get it again and knock it out.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And the biz girls love the Wiggles back in the day. So I'm very familiar with the Wiggles. Dr. Stoxen, we're out of time, unfortunately. I really appreciate you coming on the show, though.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a fantastic rest of your week. And as always, don't forget, cash flow is king.
To become part of Mr. Biz Nation, follow him on all social media platforms or never miss a show by going to MrBizRadio.com. If you prefer free video content, visit the Mr. Biz YouTube